Can you hear me now? I hope. Good. And can you see the screen as well?
Don't have video.
Do you have video?
Yes.
Good, so we're good. Oh, man.
How do they know that video?
So it takes a whole class of engineering students and one PhD student to get the audio working.
We're all going to be on a sugar high road.
Okie dokie, so I think I'm good. Okay. So, Jonathan and Doug, so I don't have the laptop, so I just have one screen here. So what I'm going to do is I will keep on switching back and forth in between to check if you guys have any questions. So if I don't answer the questions for some time, just bear with me. And now I just switch to the Windows Journal Viewer, and there we go. So how are you guys? Apart from the candy and all being high on sugar. So the documents is there, as you already know. I think that was better. Okay. So I will be taking a class today, and hopefully not on Monday. And we'll be talking about what you guys already know very well, and that is real-time scheduling.
All right, see you.
So Dr. Eames mentioned that he has already gone over the whole fixed priority scheduling. He has already talked about the Liu and Leland paper, already given an assignment on the Liu and Leland paper, and he asked you to submit that today before class. So I hope you have been able to do that.
What?
Okay, just want to get that. So what we're going to talk about today is the problem that we face in real-time systems. So far, whatever you guys have learned in class, particularly in the lab, is context switching, preemption, but can anyone say why? Like why we have spent about half the semester so far learning about context switching, learning about preemption, and why do we even want to preempt the process, and why do we want to do context switching at all? And that is 50% of the grade.
Because that's the basis of a scheduler.
Okay. Yeah. That.
With programming today, high priority tasks and whatnot, based on that.
Okay.
In order to handle those at that time.
Okay. Okay, I'll take both answers and I'll just check if anybody else over there has. Okay. I hope that's better now. I just reduced the gain. Okay. Yep. So, both the answers are correct in one way or the other. So yes, what we are doing over here is we are trying to build our own real-time operating system. And when we have operating system, we will have processes, we will have tasks. And when we want to run them, some tasks will be more important than the other ones. Or as we say, some will have higher priority as compared to the other ones. But we want to run all the tasks, preferably in the order of priority. And a high priority task, if you say that a high priority task is important and so it should always get the CPU time, that does mean that if it hogs onto all the processor time, nothing else ever gets run. It's the same thing as Dr. Eames' office hours. If one student goes over there and he says, I have the most important question to ask, and Dr. Eames says, oh, okay, all the office hours are yours. Nobody else gets the time. So you have to prioritize based on that. You have to figure out what's important. And when you say something is important or something is higher priority, the first question that comes to mind is, what is importance. Why is something of higher priority than other? So can anyone take a wild guess? Why would some process be more important than the other one? Worst case scenarios. Don't worry about that. This is just like a random quiz. Okay, I'll try to probably put some more meaningful page if I can find something. Yeah? So anyway, so the point here is that the importance of a process can be defined in various ways, and that is why there is no fixed way of saying that a particular process satisfying certain criteria will always be the highest priority process. You can have the priority assignment based on various criteria. Say, for example, you are designing a system, an embedded system for anti-collision in automobiles. Now, when you detect that the car is going to collide, you have two processes running. One is playing an MP3 file with your favorite song on, and the second one is collision avoidance. Which one should be more important? Do you want to crash while listening to the favorite song, or you do not want to crash so that you can listen to the song once again? So once again, it depends upon why you're crashing and what the person prefers at that point of time. But from a safety perspective, the collision avoidance is something that should be given higher priority, and that is more subjective in nature, what is more important. But typically when you're designing embedded systems, you will first of all have something in mind as important processes, something that should always meet the deadline, and you may give them higher priority. Or otherwise, when you are thinking from a schedulability point of view, and you have a given set of processes, as long as you are able to meet the deadline, as long as they are able to complete within time, you are okay. So you would want to assign priorities to the processes so that they are all able to run within the stipulated amount of time. So let's leave the question part to exceptions, exceptional cases, and let's look at what problems do we face and what's this whole scheduling business about. Why are we concerned about scheduling, and what can we do to fix it? Sort of. Okay. Just give me like a minute again. Is it any better now? Beth, can you hear me any better now? I'm just adjusting the mic.
Does anyone else have it?
Yeah, that's another question. So, Jonathan, Rahul, either of you, do you have? Okay, because can you check your speakers as well? Because I think Jonathan is able to hear me clearly. I'm not quite sure. The other Jonathan. Yeah. So I have tried to. Okay, yeah, so I think I have 2 votes out of 3 then. And I'll just readjust that. Let's see if this person is better this time or not. Okay, well, let's talk about that just now. So, okay. So, last time Dr. Inks talked about the big question in RTS, can I guarantee schedulability? So let's just think about what is schedulability. If you have n number of processes and you want to run all of them, and let's say you throw all of them at the processor at the same time, what's the processor going to do? Can it run everything? Thinking about, yes, a single core processor, can it run everything at the same time? No. So which one will it pick? Pardon?
Highest priority.
Yeah, assuming that we are running the highest priority first, it will run the highest priority. So, if my highest priority process is going to run, will anyone else ever run? So, if it finishes it, if it's the highest priority process and it's in an infinite loop, this will never terminate. So, we just keep on doing that. So,
If it swaps itself out.
Okay, if it swaps itself out, then probably yes. But that is when what we would want to do is we are now talking about schedulability, that a highest priority process runs for some time, swaps out, and lets somebody else run. Now the other process runs, after some time, that process decides, okay, I'm done with my work for now, I'll have the other process run, and so on. Now, based on this principle, or based on this logic, how many processes can you run so that everything runs just fine? So the first process that's running, let's say it has a periodicity associated with it, that is after every n clock cycles, it has to run again. So that means after n, it should get the processor time once again. Another process has a different periodic time, different period, that is after that much time it will run once again, and so on. So now you have lots of processes. They should resume after some point of time. So now what do we want to do? We want to be able to run all of them so that each one of them runs, finishes, lets other processes run as well, and after that allows a different process to run. So everyone should get the required amount of time from the processor. Now what is the required amount of time? So the required amount of time will be the computation time, and the computation time is defined as the compute time for the process. That is, in the worst case, how much time the process will take from the processor. Now, why do we talk about the worst case time? Is the execution or the compute time fixed for a process, or can it change? Can it change? If not, why not? If yes, why? Yes.
Are you saying the time on the processor?
The amount of time a process requires from a processor to execute. Is it fixed always, or can it change?
I think it can change.
And why can it change? Like, can you give a simple example of how can it change, if it can change? Oh, can you say again?
If you're under different conditions.
Okay, so if you are under different conditions, then yes. Say if you have a if statement, a condition is met, you run a longer function, whereas if the condition is false, maybe you run a different function that takes much lesser amount of time. So what we want to find out is, in the worst case, that is, if you select all the long-way segments, how much time is your process going to take? And why are we concerned with that? Because we cannot be optimistic here. If we take the least amount of time, and based on that, go on, as soon as this process takes more than that amount of time, that optimal amount of time, things are not going to work. So we are preparing ourselves for the worst. So we take the worst case scenario, and so we talk about the compute time, CI, for the process. And TI is a period for the process, that is, after these many clock cycles or this many seconds, this process will repeat. CI and TI for a process I can be different. They can be same, but typically the compute time should not be more than TI, because in that case you are not even finishing this and you start repeating yourself. So usually you will find that CI is less than the time period TI, and they will be different for different processes. Now, having said that, one of the best ways to come up with a schedule that is we can run everything will be a static schedule. Find out the compute time, the compute time, that is the worst case execution time for each process. Find out its time period and do a paper and pencil calculation, or if you know MATLAB, just put it in MATLAB, write a nice code, and get it done, and it will tell you everything about it. And you can just put it in a nasty loop, and everything works. So let's look here. So we start with time. This is a very familiar loop that you have seen in your lab. T equal to T time, and then while T equal to T time. Some counter is assumed that it's incrementing T time, and that's the wait function. So we run A, we run B, and we run C. Now next time we would want to run A, B, D, and E, because probably C is not supposed to run, and we go back. So A, B, they are supposed to run frequently. Their time period is probably the same or comparable, and we find this particular schedule, just run it. Now, with 5 processes, probably it's still simple. What if you have about 100 processes? Things start becoming more and more complicated. At the same point of time, why is this approach not the best suited when you are actually designing an operating system? It can work. It's the best if you can actually do that. But what is one flaw with this approach? Yes, guys.
It's always happening for the worst case, so if you have some finished earlier, you're just not utilizing the process.
So yes, if we finish up earlier, then we are not utilizing the entire time. But there is another bigger flaw with this one, which actually can render it useless if we are designing a scheduler. The problem that we end up facing is, if a particular process is running and another process must run faster than that, there is no way you can interrupt the process. The first process will complete and the second process cannot run in between. What if a process takes a long time? Say a process takes about 10 seconds to finish, and another process has a time period of 5 seconds, but takes only 1 second to run. So what you would want to do is stop the longer process in between, run the shorter process, resume the longer process, then run the shorter process, and so on. With this approach, you cannot do it. The static scalability approach will not allow you to do that. So because of that, we have spent the semester so far learning about context switching and preemption. So these things Dr. Lins had already covered last lecture. That's what he had told me. I'm just going over them once. So I hope you are all able to follow that, because now what I'm going to talk about is what he has not told. So now what we do is, in that case is, we now know about context switching, we know about preemption, and we want to be able to implement a scheduler so that we can schedule all the processes and run them. Now, how do we do that? And we'll just find that out in a second. Okay. So for that, first we want to know what is the process utilization. So how we define that is, we find out for how long a process, what's the compute time of a process, how much time period is, and that is the amount of time that particular process will utilize the CPU. So if you look at the simple example, if the compute time is 3 minutes and the time period is 9 minutes, then that process will utilize 33% of the total time available on the CPU. Now, Liu and Leland used this utilization approach, and they came up with an equation to find out if given set of processes are schedulable or not. Now, first of all, we need to realize that if the sum of the utilization of all the processors is greater than 1, that means you are trying to utilize a processor more than 100% of the time, which is not possible. So, as soon as you get U greater than 1, something is wrong. You need to change these processes. The set is not schedulable right off the bat. That is something which we will use always, that holds. Now, in the case of preemptive scheduling, what we can do is we can assign priorities to the processes, try to run the highest priority process whenever it is possible. When it is done, not run the process even though it may be ready to run, and that is the job of the scheduler. So any process that is highest priority, ready to run, will not run because the scheduler tells it not to. The scheduler preempts it, context switches to the next available ready process, runs that one, preempts it, context switches to the next process in the queue, and so on. Now, keeping that approach in mind, how do we find out whether those processes are still schedulable or not? So Liu and Leland have given a simple equation wherein we find the total utilization, and the equation states that if you have a set of n processes, then the total utilization, if it is less than or equal to n times to the power 1 by n minus 1, if you satisfy this equation, then it's guaranteed that the system is schedulable. Now, so what does this equation tell? If it is satisfied, they are guaranteed to be schedulable. But what if it is not satisfied? I can just say maybe.
It could still work, but you don't know for sure.
Okay, so John says it can still work, but we are not sure. And yes, and what do we call any such things if they can run, but they are not guaranteed? So this condition is it necessary or is it sufficient?
Sufficient.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So this condition is sufficient. So if it is satisfied, it's guaranteed schedulable, but it is not necessary because even if it is not satisfied, the system may still be schedulable. So let's look at what values do we get one for different values of n. If n is just 1, all we care about is the one process that we have should not use more than 100% of the processor. If there are 2, it should not use more than the total sum should be less than 82.8%, 78%, and so on. As n goes on increasing, we approach a value of 69.3. So it's approximately around 70%. So if your total utilization is less than 70%, you should be able to schedule them. This equation is one of the simplest ones to find out the schedulability. That's why we always try to check for this one. If it satisfies, everything is fine, we are happy. If it is not, it's a big problem because then everything else is much more complicated. So always try to use this equation to find out if it's schedulable or not. If it is not, then we look for other things as well. Yes?
How do you find out how much of the processor a process is going to need?
Good question. That how do we find out how much time the processor is going to need? So what we do is we try to find out either empirically or statically in the worst case, how many instructions can the function use. So empirically, you just probably run some benchmark test on that and find out how many clock cycles does it take, assuming it's not getting interrupted at all. Or you can always find out in worst case how many instructions it's going to use, find out how many clock cycles each one takes, and then based on that determine how many total clock cycles or total compute time it's going to take on the processor. And yes, it's complicated how you actually find out because this model assumes that there are no interruptions, there is no swapping, there is no scheduler overhead, nothing. And those are the assumptions that we have with this particular equation. We assume any context switch that happens just happens in 0 time, which is obviously not true. So does it answer your question? Okay. Just let me check if anybody else has a question here. Okay. Now, so what do we do? Because this equation is sufficient but not necessary, and if it fails, but we still want to be able to schedule our processes, so what do we do? How do we solve the problem? And the answer, I think, is somewhere on the board. It's not? I think it is. We use rate monotonic analysis. Now what's rate monotonic analysis? So what we do is we assign priorities to our processes. So we use a fixed priority system. So we have each processor is assigned a fixed priority. The shorter the deadline for the process, the higher the priority the processor gets. And just one note that in the book it's different. The book assigns a higher number for a higher priority process, but throughout this course you will see that a higher priority implies a lower number. So priority 1 is higher than priority 3. And this is not standardized, so different books or different people will use different conventions. So in LabVIEW, you will be using rate monotonic analysis. You will actually be using a command line interface, and you'll allow the users to create processes. You'll be able to tell how much is the compute time, how much is the period for a process. Now, when you create task, you have to find out that once you add the task, is the system still schedulable or not. You'll have to print out warnings if it is not schedulable, but you should still schedule the tasks. So even if it says this task, once you add it, the schedule is going to fail, you should just print out a warning, but you should still be able to add the task, and when the task eventually fails, that's when you should print an error message and quit. So you will get to implement it all in Lab 8. So what we are going to learn today will be used in Lab 8. No, it's not yet over. So. Okay. So let's look at rate monotonic analysis. So there are a few assumptions that we have. First of all our tasks are independent. So the test process we have created so far in the lab, is it independent or not? The one which prints I'm 1, 2, 3, I'm running. It's not independent? So I have one answer, it's not independent. Anybody, any takers? Everyone agrees or disagrees? Everyone agrees. So it is not independent. And why not?
Kind of like it's kind of look through.
Mm-hmm.
So like, you have to wait for the other one to finish. Kind of thing.
Okay, so the answer is there's a while loop, and so I agree there's a while loop in that, so the process keeps running, but that's a part of it. By independent, what we mean is that there is no data sharing or no shared critical sections between the processes. So if I have two of those simple test processes, they do not depend on anyone. So they are independent processes. So that's the assumption we go by when we are doing rate monotonic analysis so for now, which is not true, because when you actually have processes, you will have critical sections and you will have data sharing. But don't worry, you will get to know about that as well. We still have half semester left. Now, we assume that each process has a period T, each process has a worst case execution time C, and we use fixed priority scheduling. And what we mean by that is, once you assign a priority to a process, it's not going to change. At runtime, you will not be changing the priority. It's fixed. So at build time, we'll assign. The priorities will not be shared. They will not change at all. And now we'll assign the priorities based on the time period. And that is, the shorter the time period, the higher the priority. And why is that? Pardon?
Because it's done faster, frees it up.
Yes. So John says that yes, it is faster, and I agree that the process that has a shorter time period will actually need to run more frequently. So if a longer process is given higher priority, this process which runs more frequently will most likely end up missing its deadline. So we want to assign a priority, and so the rate monotonic scheduling, it says the monotonic means it's not going to be it's either increasing, like if you say monotonically increasing, that basically means you will never see a decrease. So as the time periods increase, the priority of processes keep on going down. Now, first things first, we'll check if we have a set of n processes, is the linear Leland equation satisfied? If yes, we are able to schedule all the processes. If not, in that case, we have a problem. So now, we have a problem because it is not a necessary condition. So if so once again, I'll just go back to utilization greater than 100%. That's one bound for us. If we find that it's more than 100%, we know it's not going to work. If it's less than what the Leland equation says, yes, it's going to work. If it's in between, that is when we want to check further. So what we do is we do response time analysis. Over here we are looking for a schedulability proof that yes, the system is indeed schedulable, and we want to make sure that it is necessary and a sufficient condition. It's a lot more complicated than the utilization bound, and that is one reason it's always recommended that you use the utilization bound equation first because of its simple nature. If it fails, then use anything that is complicated. So now let's look at the response time analysis. So what is the response time of a process? So we have the compute time, we have the time period. What's the compute time? So what's the compute time? Or what's the time period? So if a process runs for 5 seconds, the 5 seconds are compute time or the time period. Okay, so the amount of time the process requires, the amount of time of the CPU the process requires is the compute time. The amount of time after which the process starts running once again, or has a next invocation, that is the time period. What if I have two processes A and B, and my process B gets interrupted by process A because A is higher priority? How do I account for that? So process B is happily running, and then process A says, oh, by the way, you cannot run. I have to run. So it runs. So now process B cannot run. But then A finishes and B runs once again and gets interrupted once again, and process A runs, and this goes on. So does it affect the compute time of B? Does it affect the time period of B? Which by the way is fixed because you know it's periodic, the time period is fixed. So what does it change? Can it cause B to miss its deadline? If B keeps on getting interrupted, so if you are working and I keep on interrupting you, will you be able to get your work done? So B will not be able to meet its deadline. So what we do is we try to find out the response time for a particular process, and what we calculate is how much time does the process need in order to finish, like how much time does the process need from the CPU, plus the penalty or the interference that's caused by any higher priority process that does not let this process run. Now, if the compute time plus the interference is more than the time period, this process will not be, the system will not be schedulable because B will miss its deadline. So in the response time analysis, we calculate for each process how much is the compute time and how much is the interference. So for process I, its response time Ri will be Ci, that it is compute time, and Ii, which will be its without interference because of any higher priority process. Now, if there are multiple processes and they are all assigned fixed priorities, so let's say 10 processes, priorities 1 to 10, who all can interfere with process number 10, that is the lowest priority? Yes, so all the processes that are higher priority than the process with priority 10 can interfere. So when we are calculating the response time of the lowest process, we calculate its own compute time and the combined interference from all higher priority processes. When we are looking for the next higher priority process, like process with priority 9, we do not care about the lower priority process, but anything that is higher priority than that. The highest priority process will not have any interference from any other process, so its response time is just Ci. So based on that, we yes, Mr.
I was going to ask if that second one, I don't know if I'm thinking of the right thing, would it just be the sum of the compute times of all the higher priority tasks?
So yes, it will be the compute time for all the processes and their affecting the interference as well, because if any particular process, high priority process interrupts the next process, the slowest priority process cannot run. So now what we do is we find out the worst case interference, the worst case response time, and CI for each of the processes. Now TI is fixed, does not depend upon the program that we are executing, and now all we need to find out is that the response time for each process is less than its period. And if that's true, that process can run, and we can schedule all these processes. So let's go over how do we calculate the response time. So if we have two processes I and J, and we are looking at J that is its period is shorter, that means its process is higher than I, and so that what will happen when I is running and if J wants to run, J will preempt I and will run before I can complete. It's possible that J might run multiple times before I can even complete once. So we have a nice diagram over here, and we have the task J running on the top row and the task I. So J runs, I tries to run, but then J interrupts again, runs, then I tries to run, then J interrupts again and I tries to run. So now what is the total RI for the process I? That is the entire time that the Cj plus the plus Tj. So we are seeing that we are having J running about thrice over here. So we will add this entire time, and that is what will form the response time for the process I. So it's not that if we have few processes higher in priority than our current process, we just add their compute times and that's going to give us RI. But we need to look how many times they can actually interrupt the slower priority process, and that will give us the actual response time. So what we now find out is that how many times will a particular high priority process run. That is the lower priority process's response time divided by the higher priority process's period. And because that can be a fraction, we use a Phelan function to find out the next higher integer. So if we get a value 2.5 times, we assume that the higher priority process can interrupt the slower priority process 3 times. So now, if the higher priority process has a compute time of Cj, and it will run Ri by Tj times, then what is the total amount of interference cost? That is the Ri by Tj, that is how many invocations of J you have, and the compute time of J. And that is when added with the compute time of I will give you the response time for I. And using this one starting from the lowest priority process, we can keep on finding the response time for each other process. And so the two tasks, it becomes very simple, but when we have more tasks, it becomes more complicated. And so what we do is we just use a summation relation, that is how many times any high priority process is going to run. Do that for each of the high priority processes, multiply the number of times by that respective compute time for the process, sum it all, add to the lowest priority process's compute time, and that will give us the total interference time. So one question that you can ask over here is, which I thought you would ask but nobody did, do I need to worry about that if I have three processes, 1, 2, and 3, 3 gets interrupted by 1 and 2, now 2 interrupts 3, but while 2 is running, 1 interrupts 2. So do I have a cascading effect over there? How do I account for the time when 1 is interrupting 2? The way this equation calculates the response, the interference, it already accounts for that because 1 interrupts 2 and 2 interrupts 3, but what we are doing is we are already finding that how if 1 is running, how can it affect 3? So whether the process with priority 1 is interrupting process number 2, it implies it's going to interrupt number 3 as well. So we do not have to worry, thankfully we do not have to worry about the cascading effect. It's actually going to interfere with 3 as well. And with just this equation, we can find out the total interference for the lowest priority process without having to worry about those details. So now we know about the response time, and this is the equation that you'll be using the rest of the semester to find out the response time for each of the processes. Yes, Ken?
Are we going to have to worry about starvation to get too many higher priority tasks? So we're going to starve the lower
Then with the response time analysis, if you are able to find that everyone is schedulable, you don't have to worry because that will take care of it. But apart from that, yes, you will have to worry about starvation, but in a different problem. So now, if you look at this equation, how do I find my response time? I have Ri is equal to Ci, that is the compute time of this process, plus the response time of this process divided by Tj times Cj, and I integrate that. So I have Ri on both sides of the equation. So how do I find it? So have you ever seen those maps where it says you are here? So those are examples of fixed point equations, so that you have to know where you are in order to be able to read the map. If you do not know where you are, that map is not going to help you. And that's the same problem we face over here, that you do not know Ri, but until unless you know Ri, you cannot compute Ri. So how do we solve these equations? And moreover, the seeding function is what causes most of the problem, because there's no straightforward way of solving this equation. So while Dawkins will talk more about that in the next lecture, we use what is called as the recurrence relation, and we assume one value as a solution for Ri, and we take a guess. So we can start with 0 as well, but we already know that at least the time is going to be the processor's compute time, because Ri is equal to Ci plus interference. So if there is no interference, we at least know it will be at least Ci. So that's our first guess. So what we do is we plug in the value of Ci in the equation and try to compute the response time. Whatever we get, we feed it back in the equation, compute the next Ri, and we keep on going till we plug in the value and get the same value back. Once we have that, we have found the response time. And when do we stop? Not the class, that will be in another minute. But when do we stop iterating like that? And what's a certain point? Yes, we'll have to get to a certain point. If my response time becomes greater than my time period, I know for sure I cannot schedule this. So my upper bound becomes, if my Ri becomes greater than Ti, the system is not schedulable. And we have a problem. So then I need to go back and change this. So this is something which you will meet in Lab 8. You will have all the happiness while implementing that. But it's fun. So, thanks guys. Let me...